America utopia, take away the economy from those who rigged it. As I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. It's worth it. How to talk to your right-wing relatives, friends, and neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. And of course, good morning to the world receiving the signals from our magical internet created by whom and formerly known as what? The ARPANET, and created by you folks. Anyway, folks, we're going to have a great show for you. Today, we're going to reclaim that which is ours, that which the billionaires took over, and we're going to do it right. And we've started, it has begun. But before we get busy, we want to welcome the great La Gente en el estudio. In the studio, we have El Señor Howard Reynolds, Jacques Van Bebbe, and Mayana. How you guys doing this morning?
We're good. We're good. A little tired, but we're here.
Yeah, we're tired, but we're here.
Oh, we've got Dr. Frank Cannon String upstairs in his lair, tying dental floss to cans.
I tell you, you know what? He's been, Mayana's been like doing some magic here, and he's been like, I'm out of here, guys. I'm out of here. But anyhow, how's it going, Jack? What's the wisdom, the word of the day?
All right. Of course, it's about Trump. Okay, more war. Trump threatens leader of Iran, demanding unconditional surrender or death. Is this the goal of Empire USA, to use Israel as a wedge to destabilize the region with conflict, so corporate America can lay claim to the resources in that region of the world? War is just resource extraction by force, and law is what they use to create war.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. And you know what's interesting, Jack? This morning before I came onto the show, I turn on and have Morning Joe running in the background. And what I saw is, or listened to, was these guys talk about and pretty much accept the impotence of America relative to Israel, the Netanyahu. Oh, Netanyahu tell him we're going in whether you like it or not. We have to do this. We're going in. We are the country that gives Netanyahu, I think, 3 point something billion dollars a year, the American taxpayer dollars. We are the ones who supply him with his aircraft, both the F-35 and others that are doing those sorties in Iran. We are the ones who manufacture the bombs that he's using. In fact, as he mows down Gaza, the blood of all those people in Gaza, the innocent dead people, we are going to have to take some responsibility for having given him these bombs and allow him freewheeling. We are the ones who gave him the bombs that our country currently inflicting in a preemptive war on Iran. We are the ones doing that. We seem so impotent right now in letting a small country that we support, whose existence depends on us, to dictate what's going to go on. That is ridiculous. That is terrible. So, I can't. I think you nailed it. We are so entwined with this. It should put our politicians to shame. Anything else you want to add before we get started, Brother Jack?
No, that's all right.
But
I'm against war, and I would like to see law really looked at and reformed in a way that's not so damaging to people.
look, I could not have said that any better. Well, I have a lot to talk about this morning, but right at the beginning, we got a call from John. I think John wants to ask some or tell us something about the great event they had in Cyprus. So let's go ahead and bring John into the fold, and then we'll get started. Good morning, John. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning, Beto. I'm doing great. I hope y'all are too.
Yes, we're doing
Listening to
fine.
everything that you sound, I believe it. Y'all sound great, and I love the input that Jack puts in there at the beginning. Sometimes it inspires me to change my topic.
You sound like me. He does that to me all the time. I don't
Yeah,
feel bad
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. You guys in the morning do that, man, and that's good. That's a very good thing. That's a good thing. That shows how progressive I'm continue to. My mind keeps working. That's good. But
Talk to me, my brother. Talk to me.
obviously, so, and it was so impressed with Francisco at the bridge, and what happened across the country, and it just makes me feel good. It gives me hope, right? But watching what Senator Padilla did, and then what happened to him, and we've seen that happen to other people before. And the show before yours mentioned it, that it's a matter of their reaction is always violence, is always force, where Democrats always want to talk it out, and that's losing right now. So my question is, what's the recourse for those agents? You can't tell me that FBI agent who grabbed Senator Padilla, who put his hands on him, doesn't know the law. He's got a degree. That man has to have a degree to have an FBI badge. And that he didn't know that, I understand maybe the National Guard guy is that dumb.
Look,
We
they all
know that.
let me tell you what's worse, John. This is important that I don't even see why the media hasn't said this. Senator Padilla was escorted into that room with two federal agents. And when he got up and walked up front, he didn't lounge up front. He walked up front to answer a question. As soon as one of the other federal agents, a DHS agent, held him, he said, "I am Senator Padilla." In other words, I'm the United States Senator. He identified himself, not like all of them in there shouldn't know him. If they purport to be politicians, etc., and he is on the subcommittee on immigration, it's highly impossible that they don't know him. So they knew him. But here's
That's
what got me the most. Remember what I said up front. He was escorted into the room with
right.
federal agents. Why didn't those two federal agents, as soon as somebody held him, said, "Oh no, 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 this is Senator Padilla"? In other words, when he walked up, the first time a DHS agent grabbed him and pushed him, immediately the two agents that brought him into the room should have come to say, "No, sir, no, guys, this is a senator of the United States of America, the representation of over 39 million people." Nobody says that.
That's exactly
There
right.
are there are
No,
other
that's exactly right.
Mhm. There are other
Well,
components
this
here,
is the thing.
John. Go ahead. I'm
Oh yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. And this is the thing. This is the thing. You're right, and that was my point. Is that at what point is there not an investigation and those people held responsible? Because look, we know this, Egberto. We know this happened in Germany, and we know that the excuse was there that, oh, I was just following orders.
Yeah.
So
Well,
then you're saying you had no choice. Then Christy Nome should be the one that should be arrested.
exactly.
And,
But here's the other thing, right? The way they treated him also had, and
oh
I
yeah,
know, I know, I know. I really don't want to do the race card here, but any of us
you have
who are
to.
people of color know that no other person, no other senator would have a non person of color would have been thrown to the ground as senator of the United States after being identified, after being brought into that room. None would have been, no federal agent would feel empowered to put a senator down that way. But let's go a bit further. Yesterday, they did that to the comptroller of New York. But notice the difference in how the comptroller of New York was handled than Senator Padilla. But at the same time, the attempt was made to say, you see, it can happen to this guy as well. No, there is in the entire in fact, if you take a look at what the judge also a judge came out yesterday with regards to the NIH programs. The judge came out and said, I have never seen an administration that so overtly, this is a Reagan judge that so overtly racializes issues. I'm paraphrasing, but who actually damages, who passes and does actions to damage people of color and LGBTQ folk. That judge said that, so it's not Egberto or anybody else trying to pull a race card here. Go ahead, my brother.
But like me and you, we grew up in this society. We understand that because we had to live that since we were kids. We had to live with that. That that if you got out and questioned the ticket, you were going to end up in handcuffs in the back of a police car. You knew
Oh
it.
yeah. Oh,
You didn't.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you had that, and that's what these people who try to deny racism and want to be appalled because we use the word racism. But that's exactly what it is, and call it out. And you know what? It's like the show before you said. Put it up on the billboard. Keep saying it over and over and over again. But what happens is, and I've said this before, MSNBC, CNN, and I don't want to put on MSNBC because MSNBC's got some really good people like Lawrence O'Donnell.
O'Donnell, yes.
Yeah. And the thing is, but sometimes I feel like they're being told, don't repeat this because next segment or tomorrow it's not going to be said, and that's the problem. Because when a propaganda, and it's Russian-style propaganda, basic propaganda, you say the lie over and over and over and over again, and then these ignorant people who are listening will sit there and believe it. But when you have the truth on your side, like Padilla did, then let's repeat it. Let's keep repeating it. Just kind of like that bill that I told you, that section of the bill, that 70302.
Yeah.
Talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well,
You're going to wait for the court.
I am talking about it every day. I'm talking about it every day. So we have to keep doing that.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's why I send you the money I send you.
Well, I appreciate it, my brother. I appreciate your support, and it's so important.
I'm for the long run, man.
Thank you, brother.
You
have a wonderful rest of your day, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Great guy, John. And by the way, John, thank you for starting the show out and changing the topic for me now. But it's an important topic that needed to be addressed. The title of the show today is Trump Threatens Iran's Leader. New York Times exposes Musk Social Security lie. And Jasmine Crockett nails rural hospital truth. And I want to play that. Welcome aboard, Bob Reiger, Sefer Vekel, Cat, Cheryl Elkins, Sin Monique Meredith. Cheryl Elkins says DHS is feral. What we're seeing here in Massachusetts is full-blown thuggery. No IDs, no warrants, refusal to acknowledge legal documents. I fear it's only a matter of time before someone stands their ground against potential kidnappers and someone is shot. We've been saying that for a while, Cheryl. I think you nailed it. Let somebody, remember a lot of states like Texas are full carry states. And when somebody comes up with a mask to them, they may just pop a cap in them. Let's see what they say then. Susan Rosenbaum, Lori Utz, Concierge Joanna, Suzanne Jagoda, CJLJR, thank you for being here. Likewise, we have Billie Jean Irwin from Summerwood, Harry Jensen from Missouri City. Thank you guys for being here. Good morning, Jack and Mayana, and our host, Egberto, Harry Denson Jr. in the Hacienda. I love the way he said that. Convicted felon Trump, when he was candidate, Trump once stated, just take the oil. I remember that well. It would not surprise me that the United States and Israel want another Shah in Iran. For United States government and Israel, please go ahead and read. Go to Wikipedia and just scan Iran 1956, I think it is. with Mossadegh and what we did to Mossadegh. So remember that. Jay Ray is in the house from Houston. He says, Buenos dias, Jay. Welcome aboard, my dear brother. All right, I'm about to start, but I got two more calls. Let me take those calls, and then we'll go ahead and play the Jasmine Crockett video on rural hospitals. I did that last night. I think it's a very important piece that we need to play. Brother Bruce, you have the floor.
Good
And
morning.
good morning, my brother. Good morning.
Just a couple quick things. I want people to think about this. If that would have been Josh Hawley or Lindsey Graham coming in there to ask a question, what do you think would have happened? So there was racism, absolutely. The other point I want to make, and be very quick, is should Iran fall and we install a Shah, look for Trump to start selling custom Trump burqas. I'm done.
Thank you, my brother Bruce. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But you know what? Tucker Carlson had a big argument with Ted Cruz. I think it was last night, and he asked Ted Cruz a few things about Iran, and Ted Cruz really didn't have a clue. Didn't know the population of Iran. Didn't know how big Iran was. Didn't know anything about Iran. He talked about it like he believes Iran is the size of Iraq. You could see that these folks that are talking about invading this country, they do not know what they're getting into. And Netanyahu doesn't care. Netanyahu's really trying to stay in power because once he leaves office, he's going to jail, right? So I mean, he and Trump shares quite a bit in common with respect to being felons in the office. But they don't understand the complexity of Iran. Iran is not an Iraq. It's not. And sadly, if we talking about blown budget, talking about destruction of who we really are, go ahead, drop the bunker buster in Iran, destroy their nuclear program. Like I said, and I really I continue to analyze this, and I know Brother Patrick sometimes is concerned when I say this, but I think the only way you get Israel to leave Iran alone and again, like I said, it is a lie to believe. It is silly thinking to believe that somehow Iran is going to invade Israel. There is talk that one does in one's country to simply move its citizens and to make a point. But the reality is no Arab country in 2025 is going to try to invade Israel. Israel knows that. America knows that. And to attempt to go into this country serves two purposes: make the enrichment of the defense industrial complex, and the second one is to destabilize a region to simply try to take the oil. But the funny thing about it is a destabilize, as even Tucker Carlson would point out, and I can't believe I'm agreeing with Tucker Carlson here. But it will be uncontrollable. But I pause with my soliloquy and move on to Johnny. Come on in, brother Johnny. All right, how you doing, my dear brother Johnny?
Here we go. Yeah, Iran, Iraq, tomato. That's how a lot of these Republicans who don't like to read, including Wolfman Jack, Wolfman Jack, not Magic Jack, Wolfman Jack.
Yeah, we know.
That's the simplistic way they see the world, and that gets us in trouble. But, I was telling Magic Jack on the phone a moment ago, I was asking him, I says, you remember not too many years ago we was talk about defunding the police. I think the time has long passed for us to demand defunding ICE, because if you defund ICE, if you stop giving them a paycheck, guess what? They don't work for free. They're mercenary too. They're transactional too. If you don't pay them, they're not going to beat up nobody. Oh, they might beat up people for free as volunteers, but it's nowhere like they're doing right now. We have to figure out a way to stop paying them. How possible is that for the Democrats to do, being that they're not the party in power?
It is really impossible for that's the problem right now is Democrats have absolute zero power in Congress right now. And for those who think the Senate and the filibuster or whatever, the filibuster has always been a thing between gentle people. And notice I say don't say gentlemen, but gentle people. They follow it because they want to. There's nothing constitutional about the having to have cloture to pass a bill. So if the Republicans want to do something, there's no filibuster or anything that would stop them for what they want to do. And unfortunately, that's what we have. That's what the American people have voted for. Again, when you rail on critical thinking decade after decade, and enough people start to adapt that model of non-critical thinking, you get the failing nation that we are right now. And it hasn't failed yet. It is failing. It hasn't failed yet. Johnny, with people like you and others, at some point in time, we may be able to, and it has to be quickly, we may be able to recover before we completely fall off of the cliff. But let me just tell you,
What you're
w-
saying,
go ahead.
what you're saying is America is currently getting a C minus, and we're on the verge of getting a D or a D minus. So one last thought. You said something interesting. You says that the Democrats don't have any power.
Right.
Can you imagine the people who listen to Fox and who call into Rush Limbaugh back in the day? Can you imagine that? I'm not saying this about you. This is a general statement,
Right.
general observation. That fetus attitude we see on the left, we don't see that on their side. Even when they're not supposedly in power, when they're the minority
hmm
party, they still get their way. They still get their way, and the Democrats fold.
Let
This
me
is
let me
what
let me correct that. Let me correct that because you're first of all you're correct, but let me qualify that is what I should say. Let me qualify that. And I don't remember who is it that I think it's John who just said we do a lot of talking, right? Well, it's not the talking that is bad, right? It's the inability to act that is bad. And the reason we have the inability to act is that there is a segment of the Democratic Party that shares commonality with the right. And that is remember what have go say that again?
it's the centrist Democrats. You and I talk about them all the time. How
Right,
they need to
exactly. Right. And what
they won't
happens
go. They won't leave, Egberto. They won't
Uh,
leave.
well, let
They
me let me
won't.
explain though. Let me explain what can be done about that though. First, the reason. First of all, the reason that while they're out of power, Republicans still speak the way they speak is that they do know they have that segment of the Democratic Party. I have always mentioned that Biden has been likely the most, and I'm not saying progressive enough, but I'm saying Biden was the most progressive president in my lifetime based on policy that I'd ever seen, right? But still, he had to contend when it came to the BBB, the Build Back Better bill, which had a lot of great stuff in it. He still had to contend not with Republicans, but with Sinema, Manchin, and at times others that actually clipped his wings. So when you talk about that, the rebirth that can come from this, look, when things go as south as they will go, because the bill, there are certain parts of the big beautiful bill. If we don't, if we don't generate enough, or if the people in the streets elsewhere don't generate enough of a challenge that some in the MAGA world say, "Oh my God, we can't have that." A part of that bill will pass. And the parts of the bill likely to pass are the parts of the bills that will hurt MAGA the most. Which and since if you take a look at what the Senate is doing, the House moved a lot of the pain to after the election. The Senate wants to bring the pain immediately. And if the Senate part of the bill passes, many of MAGA will see that they are on the front line of the pain. And that will bring a good choice, Democrats into power, progressives into power. The thing that we have to do is ensure that the Democrats get into power aren't those that are simply ready to appease the plutocracy, appease these other guys, because there's a young kid. I don't necessarily like the way he did things within the DNC. He left the DNC finally. What's his name? The guy who was shot up from Miami, from Florida. I can't remember his name right now. He's running the organization. What's his name?
Now I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah, that's okay. But he's
high school.
Right. He's running an organization, and he's primarying.
Yep.
He's primarying incumbents. I am glad he left the DNC. Let me finish here. I'm glad he left the DNC. Yes, he quit. He quit the DNC, and now he's going full time in his real endeavor, which is to primary Democrats that aren't Democrats. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that will work in these times of dire straits. I think that'll work in these times of dire straits.
You think he could be just as effective doing that outside the Democratic Party?
Well, he can't do it within no, he's not leaving the Democratic Party. He's leaving the DNC. He was a co-chair of the DNC. He's now leaving the DNC, and now he can work and he can go ahead. The DNC cannot work against any Democratic candidate. That's the rules. And that's where he ran into trouble, because you can't talk about primarying somebody while you're in the DNC. Outside of the DNC, you can do whatever the hell you please, which I think is the good thing for David Shaw, I think is his name. I can't remember. Anyway. Anyway, I got to get started with the program. I'm running out of time. So let me go ahead and start that. Jenny will talk a little later, okay?
Real quickly before I hang up, they did the same thing to Bernie. Remember that big legislation he had, and they broke it up. I say, hey, I'm not talking about Republicans. It was the centrist Democrats, Pelosi, who tricked the progressives to go along with them, and they broke that bill into two pieces. And guess what?
Yeah.
They defunded, reduced the funding till it was a shadow of its former self.
There you go. Got to go, Johnny, got to go. Thank you, my brother. You're absolutely right. All right, folks. Thanks, Johnny. Look, I got to get this particular video in, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let me do that now, and then we'll take it on the other side. Para ver, vamos a comenzar ahora. Representative Jasmine Crockett, Democrat of Texas, appeared on Chris Hayes' show, All In. And interestingly, Chris Hayes, she went on to discuss the big, beautiful bill, right? The one big, beautiful bill that really is a big, ugly bill, a bill that really harms most Americans. After going through quite a bit, Chris Hayes pointed out something interesting. And he asked her, where is the hospital lobby? To which Crockett didn't quite have an answer, but she made the point that we don't know where the hospital lobby is, but the reality is this big bad bill, also known as the big beautiful bill by Trump himself, would actually cause a lot of hospitals, mostly in red states, mostly in rural areas, to close. Listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side, because while she didn't have the answer, I can give you the answer empirically. Let's listen to this, and we'll take it on the other side.
When I used to cover Congress day in, day out, was that the hospitals were big interest groups.
They are.
They will drop money on your head if they don't like it. They will be up in your office.
Yes.
Where are the hospitals? Honestly, it's wild to me that they have not shown up in a big way.
I don't know.
To fight this bill.
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like you saw the farmers, right? Like when we were going through that, like continuing resolution, the farmers were like, wait a minute. Like they showed up, like the Farm Bureau was like, we are here, right? And so it is odd because the hospital lobby is a really big lobby. And a lot of people probably think of lobbies and they think, oh, you're going to be the antithesis of me. But when you're talking about rural America, like I lived in East Texas, let me tell you, hospitals are shutting down. And in rural America, you don't have as many providers either. And so literally, if you have this specialized cancer, you can't stay at home. You've got to go somewhere else because there's no one that knows about the help that you need. So it is really odd. And I tell you this, that there's going to be more hurt that comes to red states than blue states. Blue states can actually take in a lot of this, not to say that they should and not to say that it's right, but like it will be
disproportionately red states will get hurt by the Medicaid cuts in both these versions of the bill.
Yes, absolutely.
Chris Hayes is right to ask. During the Obamacare debate, the hospital lobby was deep in it. In fact, a lot of the bad pieces of that bill really came to pass because the hospital lobby didn't want certain things done, etc., because they figured it would affect their bottom line. But somehow they are not very concerned about the big, bad, beautiful bill. Why is it? And, as I rack my mind, you have to realize what's the purpose of this bill. The purpose of this bill is to take away, to find ways to give the wealthy, the corporations, the big folks, a huge tax cut. And the way to do that is to take away a lot of the benefits from middle class, working class, and poor Americans. So again, the question is, hospitals. There are a lot of hospitals that are going to be closed in rural areas. There are a lot of hospitals that are going to be closed in red states. Why aren't you out there fighting to say, no, Mr. President, this is going to hurt us? You have to realize it. These hospitals in rural areas, they don't care about those small town doctors. They don't care about those small town nurses. In fact, the way they feel, if those hospitals close, there'll be a lot of room for these people to work in the cities. There'll be a lot of places for these people to work in the centers where the profit really is. You see, when you have these rural hospitals, they run on a shoestring budget with small profit margins, if any. So it's really there as a service because you want to have a body there to go ahead and bring, for all the poor people that are living there. But again, if a large percentage of these people are giving you Medicaid money and the big hospitals can get Medicaid money and other money, they would look and say, well, you know what? We get a big tax cut, and that big tax cut is way more in the aggregate than what profit these rural hospitals will make anyway. So why fight the bill? Let's make the big city hospitals and the satellites in the big cities more profitable, and to hell with the rural hospitals. So we constantly screw the folks in rural areas, and by implication, we screw the red states. But the only way you get to screw the red states if you fool the red states, because they are the ones who support the people who are going to screw them. Because their leaders had never, ever cared about them. That is why in Texas, where, and I repeat this ad nauseum, in Texas where for the first 3 years of the Affordable Care Act, people could get Medicaid, the state paid zero, and all these people would get insured. But the state of Texas said no. Likewise, after 3 years, they could get the Medicaid for 10%. In other words, the government would pay 90% of the bill, and Texas would be responsible for just 10%, small amount. And to the Texas citizens, Texas said, the Republican Texas legislature say, no, I'd rather you die than to have to pay 10% more in your health care. And this goes on and on and on with policy and policy and policy. They cut SNAP. They cut support for food banks. And what happens? Who does that hurt? Our brothers and sisters in West Virginia, who are very, very, very dependent on food banks in a lot of these areas in Appalachia. But they don't care. They have, even before the big bad bill, even during the time that Obamacare was coming into effect, even the times when the Inflation Reduction Act was coming into play, they never cared about you. The Democrats made sure to put these factories, the green factories and green policies in red states, hoping that red state politicians would say, wait a minute, if these green energy programs are in our states, then we can't really get rid of it because it'll hurt our people. But what does the big bad bill do? The big bad bill in the House version just about drops it to zero almost immediately. The Senate is trying to do a little bit of negotiation, but again, it harms their own people in order to give the money to the wealthy. It is essential that you see this, folks, as they have you hoodwinked on social issues like abortion and 10 commandments and go deport the immigrants and all these things. As they work on all of that to distract you, they're there taking your money. They're there taking your wealth. They're there taking your livelihood. They never, ever cared about you. They never even made an attempt to care about you. But somehow, you'd still vote for them. You've got the evidence, folks, and it's going to come to pass. If this bill goes through, the rural areas are going to feel the extensive pain first. And those doctors that are going to leave those closed hospitals, they'll have jobs. They'll be driving back to the city. And the city folks, the folks that they tell you to fear, they'll have good health care because they'll have even more doctors coming in from the rural areas after those hospitals close. They'll have more nurses from the rural areas after those hospitals close. There's one industry that you'll have some people there, but it's going to make you poorer. The ambulance services will stay in the rural areas because they'll have to transport you 100 miles to the hospital. And then when you get your loved one in accidents, when you get your loved ones with heart attacks, if they don't die before getting to the hospitals, if these ambulances, many of them private, gets you to the hospital, you're likely going to have to sign your home away to pay the bill to get to the hospital 100 miles away. So you see, they're screwing you up front, and you'll be screwed again if you get hurt and have to be rushed to the hospital. And God forbid you have to use the helicopter, because at that point, you probably also lose your form. Folks, look, I can't express this in more detail. Jasmine Crockett nailed it. Yes, it's going to affect the rural hospitals. Chris Hayes nailed it. Where the hell is the hospital lobby? And what I'm telling you is they've done their cost analysis and they figured, to hell with the rural hospitals. To hell with them. You guys are the ones who need the Medicaid more than anyone else. And since the Medicaid doesn't pay as much as we can in the city, to hell with it. The tax cut will more than make up any tiny profit, if any, we would have made in those rural hospitals. And then the real estate from that rural hospital, that still has some value. So that stays on the books as value for the person or the entity who once held that hospital. All I can say is, my rural brothers and sisters, my red state brothers and sisters, you better get with the program because your own is coming for you. Your own is coming for you. And let me tell you, for every video that I make, right, I create a article for it that goes into the newsletter. And in researching, I do the videos first, and then from what I know, and then I go do some deeper research into for the points that I'm wanting to high surge on. And here's what I found out, and I wrote it in the article. The rural hospitals margin is about just over 0%. The median is 1%. But the hospitals in America, in the cities, their margins are 6%. In other words, between 600 times and infinity more than the rural hospitals. So it's not hard to figure out why these mega hospital corporations are going to say, you know what? It gives us an excuse to close the hospital. Nobody can say that we're just being greedy. They can say it was caused now by your politicians. You folks, amazing. Let's go to Brother Patrick. Come on in, Patrick. How are you doing this morning, my dear brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
Have we talked about polling on the Big Beautiful Bill? How it's polling?
No, we haven't, but I do know about it. But please go ahead and frame it.
Okay. For folks that one reason or another decide that they don't know or they don't want to say something about the big bill, have an opinion about it, that polls right around 20%. The people that agree with the Big Beautiful Bill, that say that it would be a good thing, they poll right around 25 to 27%, which is to say 3 out of every 4 people you see today either don't know enough about that bill or do not want that bill. The remaining 53, 54% do not want that bill. Now, if we're in a democracy and over half of us don't want it and only 1/4 of us do want it, and there's still a party pushing for it, what does that say?
Well, it says something that's been studied. Actually, Harvard, I think, did a study on that says the people with the most money are the ones who Congress listens to, and very few bills are passed because of popular support. They're passed because of wealthy support. Continue, brother.
The Republican Party campaigned on the perceived lawlessness or the lack of law or the increase in crime. But as you've seen from the emails I've sent you, that there are studies dating back to 2018 that indicate that Medicaid and Medicare spending decreases crime at a spending rate or efficiency of 4 to 1, which is to say, if we put a clinic somewhere, it will reduce crime 4 times more efficiently or 4 times less costly than a police station. So
absolutely. Absolutely so. Anyway, my brother, thank you so kindly for that. I got some more calls, and I want to get one other video, and if I can squeeze in it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in, but anything else, my brother?
Yeah, you earned a lecture on depleted uranium and bunker busters. I'll call you at 3.
At 3 o'clock, we'll talk about it, buddy. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Michele. Or Mike Kelly? How do you say that?
Hello?
Yes, you're on, sir. How do you say your name?
Michael.
Michael. Oh, okay. Talk to me, Michael. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing fine. Maybe real quick. I don't want to stay on topic. Madisonville, Texas. I was coming through there one day, and a little kid slammed the back of my car, and I had to go to Madisonville Hospital. Okay? So, and I'm being a big shot in there, and I asked the nurses and doctors where they live out here in this rural area, and they were all coming from Houston. For 2 weeks here, put them up in the hospital owns the house, but they don't live there in the first place. And then they have more veterinarians in Madisonville than you have doctors for the cattle. So look, these people are going to lose out big time. And you just see the little Trump signs, all Trump country and all this other stuff. They're going to be the ones that's going to lose their health care. And it's a good hour and a half, a good 65, 70 minutes to get to the first hospital in Houston on 290. With that, love the show. Take care, my brother.
Thank you, my brother. Have a good one now. Take care. All right, let's go to brother Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yeah, good morning. How's everyone doing?
We're doing fine. Talk to me, sir.
Your topic today is what? Healthcare or lack of?
It is actually the one of the topic was what the big bad bill is going to do to healthcare to people in rural areas.
How about Obamacare? Wasn't it Nancy Pelosi that said we have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill? Did she say that? Yes or no?
No, that's not quite what she said. That is out of context, but go ahead, make your point, sir.
Don't change the words. Don't change the words. She said that exactly.
Look, let me tell you what doesn't work, Brian. Stop being confrontational. I said my piece, you said your piece. Continue what you want to say.
Okay, well, I'm not conversation.
Stop the argument and tell me your point, sir.
Okay, well, the point is you ramble on about a bunch of stuff and it's not true, and then just absolutely hang up, and I don't get a point back in.
Well, that's not true, sir. I have asked you to tell me anytime you've heard me say something that's not true. You have not been able to do so thus far, and you've been calling this program every day for the last several years. Go ahead with your point, sir.
Okay, you're saying you're not wrong. At what temperature does natural gas freeze?
I don't recall what the temperature is for natural gas, sir. But I mean, if you're bringing up what caused the freeze, and it was the water vapor within the natural gas that freezes. It's not the natural gas that caused the failure of the pipelines. It's the H2O vapor that at below 32 degrees freezes. So make your point.
No, actually, it was the greasing system on the wind towers that failed, and the lack of battery backup.
Okay, again, that is where the governor lied. The governor lied, sir. Again, the governor lied to the people. Most of the wind turbines in fact, the wind turbines saved the day after the gas turbines because they weren't weatherized. Caused the issue. Look, I mean, I've researched all of this, buddy.
Absolutely incorrect.
Okay,
that is absolutely
I'm not going to say. I'm not going bye. Goodbye, Brian. Bye, Brian. Let's go to. I'll wait for the other call. Uju says, "Morning." Brian calls to argue because he doesn't have a point. He still has no policy proposal, just grievance and everything. Brian, go hug an elephant. Seriously, it will help your mental health. John A., we should be adding support to add trauma capabilities to strategically located so people in rural areas can live if they are injured. I mean, we were ready to do things like that, but they keep voting against the people who would do it for them. The people who would make their lives better are the people they vote against. All right, let me see if this is going to last 6 minutes. I got one more to do here. I can get it in. Once again, the lies are exposed. We all knew that DOGE was a big failure. Yes, it was a failure. In order to try to find any type of savings, they had to lie about it. But you know what they did worse is they messed with one of our sacred programs, Social Security, and they lied about it. And they lied about it not by error, but knowingly. I want you to listen to this piece, and then we'll take it on the other side.
40% of the calls into Social Security were fraudulent.
40% of the people who are calling in are actually committing fraud. That means the 60% who need their Social Security checks are waiting in line.
We learned 40% of the phone calls that they get are from fraudsters.
40%?
That's right.
Almost half.
Yes, and they steal people's Social Security is what happens.
That was a lie. It was repeated over and over again by the most powerful people in our government everywhere they went. It was used over and over to justify Donald Trump and Elon Musk's chaotic plans to take over the Social Security Administration. Today, the New York Times reports that it's also an example of how the Trump administration knowingly allowed a critical government agency that millions of Americans depend on to be run through misinformation, echoed and amplified publicly by Elon Musk, and in this case, enforced internally by Stephen Miller's wife. From that new report, quote, Social Security employees knew the billionaire's claim had no basis in fact. After journalists followed up, staff members began drafting a response correcting the record. That's when Leland Dudek, plucked from a mid-level job only 6 weeks earlier to run Social Security, got an angry call from the White House, according to several people familiar with the exchange. Quote, the number is 40%, insisted Katie Miller, a top administration aide who was working closely with Musk, according to one of the people familiar with the April 1st call. President Trump believed Musk, she said, do not contradict the president. Take me through what you and your colleagues are reporting.
Yeah, well, we looked at Social Security. It was really sort of a case study of Elon Musk. It was and DOGE, and they kind of fixated on this, as the agency that they were going to try to kind of fix. They thought there was all kinds of fraud and waste, and this could be sort of a shining example of that. But what they ended up doing was taking all kinds of distortions, misinformation, and blowing those up through Elon Musk's Twitter feed. And it caused a lot of havoc inside the agency. We were able to see that really close up with some of our reporting from current and former employees. And they ended up elevating somebody who was a mid-level person, a fraud expert actually, but then not actually listening to the expertise of him and others in terms of trying to actually fix an agency. Instead, it was things that they didn't understand. They just assumed it was showing something really scandalous instead of actually trying to understand it. And they rejected the expertise, and that caused a lot of chaos and problems.
I want to read more from your reporting. You write this: the Times investigation found that Musk became fixated on the program in early February after members of his team misread government spending data. In response, Musk's team mobilized dozens of Social Security employees to affirm their views about fraud and began a project to ensure dead people were properly classified so they weren't mistakenly paid, even though DOGE officials acknowledged in an internal memo that payments were not being made in those cases. I mean, there are still probably millions of the president's supporters who believe that lie.
It got incredible traction, this idea that and President Trump even repeated it in his congressional address. And he even said, he went through and read off these stunning numbers of the people who were dead. And he said that it was that many of them were on Social Security. In fact, the DOGE members who were inside the agency at the time, they understood that these were very old people, 150 or so. They were 150 years old, and it was just a record-keeping issue, essentially, with them. And it was not actually getting any payments, and they understood that. And yet they embarked on this whole project to ostensibly remove these people, give them different dates of death, in order to satisfy this idea that Musk and President Trump and others were perpetuating, that these were actually dead people getting Social Security checks, which was not true.
It was never true. And they hoodwinked their people, and in the process made Social Security much more inefficient. People waiting on lines, etc. We have a little bit of time. Patrick, come on in. Patrick, you're on. Okay, I can't hear anything from Patrick. Patrick, are you there? Am I missing something? What's going on? I can't hear. Is it? Anyhow, let's go ahead and studio. Are you there at all? Or are we missing something with the signals? Okay. We maybe we're missing something here with the signals that I can't hear what's coming in from the other side, but I know that they can hear what we're saying from the other side. So let me go ahead and say we're close to the end of the program. This is what's really happening, folks. this is what's really happening. Unfortunately, we have a system now where John A. says a majority of citizens are completely unaware of the MAGA murder bill and how horrible it is. We also have Susan Jagoda that says repeating lies become truth to the base. They are bought into the cause and facts they see with their own eyes that differ with the party do not resonate. Uju says, bingo, Susan. It is truly sad how people have allowed themselves to be conned for decades and generations. Um, yeah, look, at some point, some people think that what we're doing here is, what's the word that I want to use? That we're not going to get anywhere doing this. Let me tell you, folks, we have to continue putting the message out. We don't have any options other than to put the message out. Okay, let me see if I can hear the studio. Studio, we are coming close to the end of the program. Do you have anything that you want to add before we get out of here?
No, it's just a National Picnic Day, so Yogi Bear is really happy for a picnic basket.
Yay.
Yeah. Hey, Howard, you're back in the house. Give me a little statement before I get out of here, Howard.
Oh, I can't hear him. I don't have any headsets.
Oh, well, I said give me a little statement before you get out of here, Howard.
Oh, okay. Well, it's going to be another great day here at the radio, and I've been upstairs working and listening to you. And what's the deal with Brian anyway?
Hey, be nice, Howard. Be nice, Howard.
What is the deal with this man? Does he not read anything? Does he not understand anything? But I'll be nice to him and say, Brian, have a good day. And Johnny, you too.
Anyway, folks, thank you very much. Thank you, studio, Mayana, Howard, Jack. Thank you, guys. You guys are wonderful. Anyway, folks, I love you all. You can get the rest of the program at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. You can write me, email me directly. I answer all my emails. Sometimes I get so many, it takes a little while, but I answer them all at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!